everyone, and welcome back to the Acadian Question, the podcast where we look into the rich and often overlooked history of Prince Edward Island, or as it was once called, Ile St. John. I'm Kristina, and over the last few episodes, we've journeyed through the history of this remarkable family, from Michel Hache de Gallant's pioneering leadership in the early 18th century to the devastating deportation of 1758. Today we'll focus on the enduring legacy of the Hache Gallant family and how their story connects to modern Acadian culture and identity.
That's right, Kristina. We begin our series by introducing Michel Hache de Gallant, who arrived on Ile St. John in 1720 and played a critical role in helping to establish Port-le-Joie as a thriving Acadian settlement. Through all of this hardship, the family's legacy has endured and continues to shape the cultural landscape of PEI and beyond. And joining us again is Maxine, who has been diving into the modern-day connections to the Hache Gallant family. Welcome, Maxine.
Thank you for having me, and what a legacy it is. Today, their descendants celebrate this legacy in countless ways, from family reunions to large-scale cultural festivals like World Acadian Congress. Let's dive into what makes their story so significant and how it continues to resonate today.
First, let's touch on the incredible impact the Hache Gallant family had on Prince Edward Island. Michel Hache de Gallant was more than a settler. He was a leader, a harbor master, and a key figure in shaping the economic and agricultural development of Port-le-Joie. By the time of his tragic death in 1737, he had not only established a prosperous farm, but also laid the foundation for his descendants to thrive. His family's ownership and development of land were crucial in turning Ile St. John into a strong Acadian community.
And that prosperity is still evident today. In the late 1980s, archaeologists uncovered the remains of Michel's house at Port-le-Joie. They found a visible cellar depression and artifacts like French tableware, which highlighted the family's relative wealth and importance in the colony. These findings, now protected by Parks Canada, serve as a tangible connection to the past, offering descendants and historians alike a window into the lives of one of Prince Edward Island's foundational families.
It's not just archaeological sites that preserve the Hache Gallant legacy. Across PEI, monuments and plaques commemorate the family's contributions. One notable monument, erected in 1965, honors Michel Hache and Anne Cormier as the first Acadians to permanently settle on the island. It's a powerful reminder of their pioneering spirit and the role they played in shaping the island's history.
The legacy of the Hache Gallant family isn't confined to Prince Edward Island, though. Today, their descendants can be found all over the world, and many of them actively engage in preserving and celebrating their shared heritage. One incredible initiative is the Facebook group Descendants of Michel Hache de Gallant and Other Acadians, where members share genealogical research, family stories, and historical insights. It's a vibrant community that keeps the family's history alive and accessible.
Yes, and we were lucky enough to speak with Nicole Gallant, the creator of that Facebook group. Nicole has dedicated years to researching and preserving the family's history, creating a digital community that brings together the Hache Gallant descendants from around the world. We asked Nicole about our journey in forming this group and her thoughts on the importance of keeping these connections alive.
I was really lucky to have this conversation with Nicole. She shared not only her passion for genealogy, but also her thoughts on how understanding family history deepens our connection to cultural identity. She also gave us some insight into the kind of work that goes into running a group like this and fostering such a vibrant community. Thank you so much for joining us, Nicole. Over the course of our research, we've also looked into the multitude of contributions that you have also made. There is a real wealth of information that you yourself have accumulated. During the course of our own research, we came across some really interesting information about the descendants of Michel Hache de Gallant. We actually found this information from one of the members of the Facebook group, particularly concerning the murder case of Xavier Gallant. Xavier was married to Madeleine Doucet, but in a state of insanity, he killed his wife. He was convicted and sentenced to be hanged, then pardoned, only to die from starvation in jail. Now, Xavier was the son of Willis Gallant, who did appear on our 1752 census. He did live in Ile St. John as well. However, Louis Gallant and his family took refuge at Baise des Chaleurs and then settled in Ristigouge, following the deportation of 1758. Now, Nicole, through your research, was there anything particularly interesting you found?
The biggest surprise that people like come across, and the biggest thing that people question is like Michel, the original. Sometimes I call him Michael because it's
easier.
The English version. My dad is actually Michel Gallant, so it's weird. But so Michel, the original, like we don't know his origins, and so people since the beginning of time have speculated, and so it's going off of like research that was done centuries ago, and they're trying to dig into it, and they're like, yes, we have like this indigenous ancestry, like it's been passed down, like the family knowledge in a lot of branches, and that's not super uncommon with Acadians because that's they didn't intermarry with the Mi'kmaq population in some cases, but it's just interesting now that people are seeing my research with the DNA that I'm working with, and they're like, we see it, like we see it now, like wow, it's too much to be like a coincidence. So that's something, just since I think I published, was it 2021, I think was my article. And I had been working on it for years, and I'm like, I want as all the descendants, like I want all the kids that they had. So they had 12 children, Michel and Anne, but only 10 lived to adulthood because sadly 2 daughters were lost at sea, during the expulsion. And then their children went with them. So their lines ended. But I've found descendants of the other 10 that all survived, and so we're all living today as the 10 children descendants, and so being able to test them and to say like, yes, it's consistently showing up, and it doesn't always show up because with the way it's inherited, sometimes it does dilute out, so like the small percentage that is still at our generation, but I can't find any other explanation for it. And so that's something that people are really interested in now, is like, how can we take what I've done? I'm one person, I don't run a lab. I'm in my office with my Christmas lights here in my home office. So like, what can I really do? So I'm hoping that this will lead to someone saying like, we now have a good pool of descendants in the group to work with. And if people are like, yeah, take my DNA, like do something with it. So I think that's the most interesting thing that people are interested right now, is to see like, where does that go in terms of like, what testing can we do? Can we find these like genetic markers? And what can we do in 10 years or 20 years? Like think back 20 years ago, we weren't doing any of this stuff. So become like a calling card, like a fingerprint or something to like Gallant descendants. I'll see people that just get their DNA done. It's like, hey, I think I'm Acadian. I don't know, I'm adopted. And I'm like, I see that like Indigenous Arctic. And I'm like, I guarantee you have like Hache Gallant in there. And then like I find it and I'm like, again. So in terms of the interest, I think that's where that is.
So it's really connecting a whole puzzle piece that is Acadian history, and bringing the diaspora of Acadians together. Due to a lack of records, piecing together the history of Acadians in PEI and beyond is exceedingly difficult. And as someone who is taking charge of this research, what has been the most difficult part?
The biggest challenge for sure is the lack of the original records. So we have, like, I don't know if you're familiar with researching in Quebec, but they have fantastic databases because their records were preserved. Quebec didn't fall the way Acadia did when the British took over. In Acadia, the records were destroyed purposely. They were lost over time to like natural disasters. The surviving documents we have are like just small percentage of what we should have. So we see Quebec and we know with Catholic records what we could have had in Acadia if we didn't lose it all. So by far the lack of records. The name changes that you talked about, the names were said out loud, so it was spelled phonetically and how it sounded. So Gallant, like if you're talking in a French accent, and then you add in the D names, the D-I-T, it's like a nickname. It's like, so Hache was supposedly his original name, D. Gallant. It's like, was he brave and gallant? Is that where it came from? That's the story we like to tell, but we don't know exactly where these nicknames came from. And it was very popular also in Quebec, where they had, they would get them in wartime, in the army, in the services, they would give them these nicknames. Like if they were real big, they'd be like, name them Lejeune, so they'd be like the small, and they'd name them like these funny names, or where they came from, their origins, physical descriptions, something about their characteristics. So it could literally be anything. So following that, like if you're looking like as a Gallant and I'm looking at my name, you wouldn't think the first person was Hache, right? So you're looking at it like, how did that drop? And my line actually dropped it around, I think it was like between 1800 and 1850. So you have a lot of names that have those D names where it's two, and you're not quite sure which one was the first one, which one originated. And then you also have, like with the phonetic spelling, like you have all the different variations. And it was really up to the priest or whoever was officiating on the record how they wanted to spell it. It's like, oh, well, I knew somebody with that name and they spelled it like this, so this is how it is now. And as the Acadians, many, like Michel was very educated. He could sign his name and write and everything, but a lot couldn't. And then just the records that did survive, sometimes people can't read the French. I didn't grow up speaking French. I had to teach myself how to read it. When the deportations happened, everybody just scattered. So that event is massive in terms of like just the dispersion of everybody. And so your lack of records, everybody moved around. The French language is tough now for people to, especially if you're, an English speaker. And then you have like name changes and you have like all these factors that all work together to make it exceptionally difficult.
There is certainly a lot of filling in that we as historians have to do in order to be able to fully tell the history of Ile St. Jean. Clearly, piecing together the history of Acadians, especially after the expulsion, is really difficult. Despite this, you have consolidated a real wealth of data here. You have created a community for descendants across the world to be able to discuss their family history together. Our group has really benefited greatly from the research you have provided, and not just the Facebook group you created, but also from your 2022 research article titled The Possible Origins of the Acadian Michel Hache de Gallant and the Ongoing DNA Analysis of the Hache Gallant Descendants Today. Now, Nicole, what initially inspired you to start up this Facebook group?
I was in a bunch of different groups at the time when I decided to make that specific one. So I admin for a bunch of other Acadian and French Canadian groups. So I'm in there as like the admin, the moderator, the group experts, and I pop in and I was helping out in a bunch of places. And I remember thinking, like, I just want to be able to have, like, people would make stuff for their own families, like the Smith family group. And so everyone would go on and share. And I was like, I want one. And so, right? So I was like, I'll make one. And so I wanted to make it, for this descendants of, Michel and Anne specifically. But you can't really say that it's just for them because all of the Acadians are so, I'm sure you realize by now, the endogamy and the intermarriage is right up there, like on par with like, Ashkenazi Jewish people, the Appalachian families. So super intermarried. You cannot find another Acadian that you're not related to like a dozen times. You cannot. It's impossible. And so I wanted to make it and other Acadians to include because the branches that married in is basically every other Acadian family.
So fundamentally, your wish was really to connect this diaspora of Acadians living across the world. The history of Acadians that has been wiped from our records really comes to life through your work. Thank you so much for joining us, Nicole. If anyone would like to discover more about Acadian history, especially concerning Michel Hache de Gallant and his descendants, consider looking at the Facebook group Nicole has created, as well as her 2022 research article, The Possible Origins of the Acadian Michel Hache de Gallant and the Ongoing Analysis of Hache Gallant Descendants Today, as well as the Acadian Expulsion Memorial List that Nicole and several other Acadians have helped compile in order to commemorate Acadian Remembrance Day.
Speaking of community, family reunions are another way the Hache Gallant story is celebrated. In recent years, these reunions have drawn descendants from across North America to locations like Skamagan, Port-LaJoie, Fort Amherst National Historic Site. These events often include site tours, genealogy presentations, and cultural celebrations that deepen connections to the past, while fostering a sense of pride in Acadian identity.
And it's not just the Hache Gallant family that benefits from these gatherings. Larger events like the World Acadian Congress, held every 5 years, bring together thousands of Acadian descendants from around the globe. This 2-week festival is a celebration of Acadian culture, complete with music, food, historical reenactments, and youth activities. It's an incredible opportunity to honor the resilience and creativity of the Acadian people.
I couldn't agree more, Michael. One of my favorite parts of these festivals is the Tintamarre Parade. Participants dress in colorful attire and make joyful noise with pots, pans, and other instruments, symbolizing the enduring spirit of the Acadian people. It's a powerful reminder that, despite centuries of hardship, their culture continues to thrive.
Absolutely. Events like Congrès Mondial Acadien and Caraquet Acadian Festival also demonstrate Acadian art, music, and folklore, ensuring that these traditions are passed down to future generations. For many descendants of the Hache Gallant family, these festivals are a chance to reconnect with their roots and celebrate the community that has grown from their ancestors' resilience.
The story of the Hache Gallant family is also a story of collaboration and coexistence. During their time on Ile St. Jean, the family interacted with the Mi'kmaq people whose lands they shared. While these relationships were complex and often localized, they reflect a broader history of cultural exchange and adaptation. For example, modern sites like the Scotchford Indian Reserve No. 4, located near the Hache Gallant settlement, serves as reminders of the shared identity and the enduring presence of Indigenous communities in the region.
So why does this story matter? The Hache Gallant family represents the strength and determination of the Acadian people, who faced incredible challenges yet persevered. Their story is a reminder of the importance of heritage and the role it plays in shaping our identities. By remembering and celebrating this history, we not only honor the past, but also gain a deeper understanding of the present.
If our listeners are inspired by this story and want to learn more about the Hache Gallant family or the Acadian experience, what can they do, Maxine?
For our listeners, I encourage you to explore your own family histories. Visit historical sites like Scamaug and Port LaJoie, and attend Acadian festivals, and connect with others who share your heritage. Whether you're a direct descendant of the Hache Gallant family, or simply interested in Acadian history, there's so much to discover, learn, and celebrate.
Awesome. Thank you, Maxine. And if you're able, consider attending the next World Acadian Congress. It's an experience like no other, bringing together people from all walks of life to celebrate Acadian culture and community.
The story of the Hache Gallant family isn't just a tale of survival. It's a testament to the power of heritage, community, and resilience, qualities that continue to shape Prince Edward Island and beyond.
Thank you for joining us on this journey through the history and legacy of 18th century Ile St. Jean through the Hache Gallant family. This has been The Acadian Question. I'm Kristina.
And I'm Michael.
And I'm Maxine. Thank you all for listening.